All right, if you all are ready, we will be getting started. We're going to hand it over to the panelists at this point. If anyone has any questions, please use the Q&A function and they will be answered as there's moments to spare. We will also have a Q&A after the presentation. Thank you guys very much.
Welcome everybody. This is Social Media for Architects with AIA New Jersey, the providers. My name is Brian Penshow. Panelists are William J. Martin, Drew Paul Bell, and Stacy Wool-Cleish. Let's go through to the next slide. This course is approved for 2 learning units. If you stay for the whole thing, it's free. It's really up to you. I hope you stay for the whole thing. We've got plenty of content for you. Next slide, please. This is just a course description, some housekeeping. You guys know that you're probably on social media. Almost everybody is, consumer or content creator, but we're gonna try and help you along to get a little bit more into using social media for marketing, networking, being a little bit more active and increasing public awareness. Next slide, please. This is legal compliance stuff we have to take care of because it is an AIA meeting. AIA and its members are committed to the highest ethical standards and full compliance with all laws and regulations, including federal and state antitrust laws. By complying with both the letter and spirit of antitrust laws, we protect the integrity of our professions and the reputation of the AIA. Next slide, please. Okay, imagine there were hundreds, if not thousands of people out there interested in what you have to say. Not only are they out there, but they're looking for the type of information that only you can provide in the way they want to hear it. Social media platforms now offer the ability to hear and be heard by audience that you choose and build. Think for a moment how powerful that can be. Influence is the capacity to have an effect on the character, development, or behavior of someone or something. Social media influencers are having a greater and greater impact on our society every day. Please welcome our panel of social media influencers in architecture that will share with you their experiences, ideas, tips, and tricks for using social media platforms to get your message out. William J. Martin has been designated a social media influencer by AIA National and the co-chair of AIA New Jersey's Public Affairs Committee. Bill, would you introduce yourself to our audience?
Hello, Bill Martin here. How is everyone?
I met Drew Paul Bell in Portland, Oregon last year at the inaugural Young Architect Conference. We were both wandering around before 7 a.m. looking for breakfast in Portland and instantly knew from across the street that we were both architects. It wasn't long into breakfast that I realized this man had interesting and intelligent things to say. Luckily, we have him here today to share. Drew, would you tell the audience a little bit about your story and what you're doing now?
Yeah, guys, my name is Drew Paul Bell, and I'm a registered architect, and I run a YouTube channel where I give advice to architecture students on how to succeed in school and transition into the profession.
Thank you, Drew. If you've not met Stacy Wool-Cleish in person yet, I hope you get the opportunity when we can all get back together meeting in person. Her energy and passion for architecture and architects is almost as contagious as a global pandemic. Stacy's list of accomplishments within AIA is as long as my arm, and I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. Stacy, would you tell our audience more about you?
Sure. I am currently a sole practitioner as well as the consultant to AIA New Jersey for most of our social media work. I write most of our blog posts, and I interface with many of our members who reach out to AIA, whether it's through social media or the website. We've been working on this program for many months and are so excited to have such a great turnout tonight. So I hope you stay with us, learn a lot, and feel free to follow up with us after the program if you have questions.
Thank you, Stacy. Okay, let's get to the next slide. So I'm the moderator, Brian Penshow. If you haven't met me before, I am at AIA Jersey Shore. I'm the current chair of AIA New Jersey's Custom Residential Architects Network and the Small Firm Exchange. And I'm working as a construction specifications writer for Construction Specifications Incorporated. So I hope today we're going to have a good conference, a good panel assembled. And like Stacy said, we've been working on it for a long time. So I hope you all enjoy it. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so this first question is for everyone, but let's start with you, Bill. What social media platforms are your top 2 or 3 on which you post content?
I am active on Twitter quite a bit. I love Twitter. I'm also active on Facebook. I have a personal Facebook page and a WJM architecture firm page. I'm on LinkedIn, but it's not my favorite one. I'm on YouTube also, but I'm not that active. Instagram is terrific. I love Instagram. It's expanding tremendously. I also have some activity on Pinterest as well. My top 2 favorites, I would have to say, are Instagram and Twitter.
What about you, Drew?
So I use Facebook and Instagram and Twitter a little bit for personal stuff, but where I've been building the audience has been on YouTube. That's where I've, through doing several videos, over 100 videos, I've got 18,000 subscribers over there. And some of those followers spill over to Instagram, and some of them spill over to Twitter. But primarily, I'm using YouTube and focusing on making YouTube videos.
That's great, Drew. And what about you, Stacy?
I have accounts on all of the platforms that were showing up here today. I primarily use Facebook and Instagram for my personal accounts as well as my business accounts. But I use Pinterest one-on-one with a lot of clients. I'll set up a private Pinterest page with a client and we can share design ideas there. That's a really favorite one for me. And Twitter, I use less, but for different kinds of messages. So the different platforms function differently depending on who you want to talk to and what content you want to share.
I'm really interested in learning more about Twitter because I just became active on Twitter now. I guess for me, my most robust profile, the one that I kind of key into the most, is LinkedIn. Facebook I use quite a bit also, but I'm interested in using Twitter and Instagram a little bit more for marketing at least, and I have no idea really how to get those platforms to do the kind of thing that I want to do that I can do on LinkedIn and Facebook. And I know they're for different audiences and there are different ways, but learning about how different posts on different platforms could be really helpful for me. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. When did you guys first start using social media? Let's stay with you, Stacy. When did you first start using social media?
My first Facebook account was in 2008, and I joined it primarily to stalk old boyfriends and things like that. I added a LinkedIn business account right around the same time, and then didn't really have my fully active business accounts until a couple of years later. So the LinkedIn account I created right away, but I didn't have that much activity there.
And you, Drew, what about you?
Well, I mean, using it personally, I started back in like middle school a long time ago, but it was when I was in my freshman year of college that I found TED Talks, and I kind of became hooked on TED Talks. I felt like I was hearing people who were masters of their craft talk about marketing and building businesses and networking and all kinds of things. And I would dive deeper into what some of these people were offering. They were selling books and they had blogs. Then they would have YouTube channels and podcasts, and years later. And it was around 2012 that I decided I was going to try to provide the value that I had seen online for architects, right? Because I had seen people who were talking about building businesses and networking and entrepreneurship, and I could see how a lot of that stuff translated into what I was doing in studio, but I was looking for the person talking about architecture specifically, so that I didn't have to go through that like translation process. By the time I was in my 4th year out of a 5-year degree, I decided that I could be that person, that I at least had value to offer to the freshmen. So, you know, like I was at least a few years ahead of them on the assembly line, so to speak. So I knew I had value to offer to someone. So I focused on that target audience. And that was around, I think it was around 2013 when I published my first video. And then I've been publishing since then, with a little hiatus here or there to get my license and move to New York.
That's awesome. You know, an architecture career is very long and very storied. And you can always be a leader for the people that are coming behind you. So I think that's great that you jumped in and filled that gap. What about you, Bill? When did you start?
Well, you talk about social media and you talk about starting on it. When I started my firm in 1991, I started, producing content back then. Well, it was a little bit different back then with the computers, and I was trained traditionally and adapted to the computers. But one of the things that always frustrated me about the AIA, no offense to the AIA, was that I felt that they weren't engaging enough and explaining enough about why architecture is important to the media in general. So back in the 90s, I was actually engaging in social media, but I was using the telephone. And I mean the real regular phone, the landline phone. I would call local journalists every once in a while to see if they had any interest in my work. And, everybody told me I was crazy. Well, they're not going to care about that. It's not, it's not on fire. It's not about to explode, and they're not going to care. But they did. I used to get calls back from journalists in the area and developed relationships with them through the phone. And I, through the 90s and into the early 2000s, I had, I was quoted in newspapers quite often. I started using social media when I realized that it greatly facilitated the process of communicating the value of architecture to people. And I started on Twitter in 2009. My main goal was to reach out to colleagues and to journalists and to politicians who are all on Twitter, by the way, and in order to promote the profession as a whole. I wasn't really out there promoting myself. I really wanted to promote the profession as a whole. So I started with Twitter. I very quickly moved over to Facebook, Pinterest. Instagram was the last one that I started to engage in, but I realized there with Instagram, the visual content, whereas with Twitter, it's more of the short burst message. So that's when I started to use social media. And I definitely have my preferences as to what to do with which one.
I started using the social media in 2008. I signed up for Facebook. I had a MySpace account, and my wife said to me, "Why don't you give Facebook a try? I think the MySpace is done for." So I moved over to the Facebook, and at first it seemed to me like a big waste of time. Everybody was playing Farmville back at that time and sharing pictures of their cats and stuff, and it wasn't very handy for doing anything other than wasting time. But I quickly saw the potential for social media to provide social proof. Everybody wants to know that you're a good architect before they hire you. And how are they going to find out? It's word of mouth most of the time. Are they going to ask everybody the way that they did traditionally? Let's go talk to on the phone, landline, and call up our friends. Do you have an architect to recommend? Now they were starting to use social media to snoop on you and to find out if you're a good architect or not. So it had built-in social proof when I wanted to sell my work. It was pretty easy if somebody had already seen it on my social media stuff. "Oh, I saw that house you did for John. That looked great. Can you do the same thing for me?" And quickly I said, I got to get this over LinkedIn. I got to build out my business stuff. I got to open a web page for my business, a social media web page for my business. And from there, I just started using it as much as I could. Let's go on to the next slide. How often do you engage in social media? Drew, why don't you start off on this one for us?
I consume it on a daily basis, and I respond to comments whenever I get them. But when I am on my game about posting videos, I try to post once a week. I try to set up a schedule where I'm shooting on Tuesdays and uploading on Wednesdays or Thursdays. To me, it's kind of more about establishing a rhythm and just being consistent.
What about you, Bill?
I consume the content each day, and I post, I spend about 15 minutes in the morning looking through the various platforms and commenting and sharing, and then about 15 minutes in the evening, and then I may respond to comments during the day as they pop up on my phone. So I work on my computers in the morning and the evening, and my phone is with me during the day. But it really doesn't take that much time a lot of what I do in the morning is when I get up and have my morning coffee, I kind of look around in the news and see if there are any architecturally relevant happenings in the world. And I may create some content around that. And then, of course, I look to promote content that others have created that are also around whatever that issue happens to be. And of course, you use hashtags, and you want to make sure that your content is authentic. But I really don't spend that much time. I do enjoy doing it. So, I may spend a little bit more time in the evening if I have time. But it's really not that much of a time commitment.
So, Stacy, I saved you for last on this one because I think you have a little bit more to say. You have more duties to do with engaging on social media also. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. Well, so there are 3 categories of social media that I engage with: personal, my private business, and my AIA work. One of the things that I find to be consistent across all 3 of those is being available to be responsive to people who engage with your social media. So the time that I spend creating content, for AIA, we post new content multiple times a week. Sometimes it's planned content that we discuss even a month in advance, and we might interview people, or we might plan events that we're going to cover, or significant dates that we're going to cover. Or it may be something that's happening immediately in the news, or something that we didn't anticipate that we then create content right away. For my business, I try to post something once a week. And personally, I post things as something comes to mind or something occurs that I want to post. But the more important thing is, as you're building up your social media presence, is for you to check back into your social media accounts and respond to people who are making comments on your content. So I'm not necessarily creating new content every day, but I'm engaging on social media very regularly to see who's commenting, either like their comment or respond to their comment. But while you're trying to build up your presence, it's very important to pop over every once in a while. It doesn't have to be a lot of time, but pop over every once in a while to see who's interfacing with you and make sure you're responsive to that.
Great, thanks. Can we have a click on the slide? Get to the. How do you deal with the distractions, noise, and social media addiction? Stay here with Stacy. Tell us about distractions on social media.
Well, I will say there certainly have been phases since joining in 2008 where I did succumb to social media addiction. I was spending a lot of time on it. It was so exciting and interesting to be able to connect with so many different people who either had common interests with you or old friends who you hadn't been able to see or be in touch with for a while. And, I know sometimes there's a hot topic in town, and I feel like the whole darn day I'm just checking, saying what about something. So it is something that you depending on if you're enjoying it and depending on if you're benefiting from it, then it makes sense to spend more time there. But it can become a distraction and noise. So you have the ability to shut off your notifications for social media and to relegate the time that you spend on social media to certain times of your day so it doesn't overtake what else you have going on.
I had read an article about social media addiction and how you can get lost in social media, and maybe it's a good idea to unplug. So I unplugged from all social media for about a month and a half. And I found out that it did not improve my time. It did not improve anything else. I wasn't really addicted or stuck in social media. It wasn't such a big time suck for me. I didn't have the problem with the addiction of social media. A lot of times I do want to turn it off because I'd rather be doing something else rather than going. It almost seems like this becomes a little bit of something we have to do, not just we want to do it, but we're required now to have this extra marketing push for our businesses. What do you feel about that, Bill?
I am an architect first. Social media is a secondary thing for me. Again, I'm out there trying to promote the profession as a whole. I'm also promoting my work as well. Obviously, there's marketing aspects to this that are very valuable, but I have responsibilities, I have meetings, I have clients. That really prevents me from any kind of damaging addiction. You know, you don't want to lose perspective. Why are you doing this? Why are you engaging in social media? There is a purpose. The social media should not be the overarching purpose. So you really need to have a kind of a clarity into, you know, why you're doing what you're doing, and pursue in a consistent manner the content and the methods by which you're engaging with people. I like to engage with journalists a lot. I like to engage with politicians, although not so much these days. You know, you want to have authenticity. I do, like Stacy, also have my personal Facebook page, and, you know, people from high school, college, you know, some of my clients even contact me through my personal. I tend not to want clients to be on my personal Facebook page. The other mediums, I don't really concern myself. I want my clients to engage in my my firm Facebook page. But as far as social media addiction, you know, like I'm sure, like everyone on this panel social media course, you know, takes their work very seriously. My work is number one. Social media is number two for me.
So Drew, you have a little bit of a different challenge. You have to cut through some noise to get your videos seen by other people. Tell us about what kind of things you do to make sure that other people can see what your message is.
So within YouTube specifically, it's kind of platform specific, but when you look at the page on YouTube, somebody is looking at, whether it be on their phone or on their computer, they're looking at several different videos, but what they're seeing is they're seeing thumbnails, and then they're seeing titles. So it's important to identify titles and thumbnails that are going to catch people's attention. If you look at my channel, I think I went through a phase where I was deliberately wearing bright colored t-shirts because gray shirts didn't look good in the thumbnail. Now I tend to do more black, but you know, that kind of changes as time goes on. And now YouTube is doing stuff where it'll begin playing the clip, like it begins playing it already. So sometimes that's not as important, but I do think a pattern that I've noticed recently has been that the videos that get the most views and people are the most responsive to, they answer a specific question. People generally aren't looking for a YouTube video that's going to be real esoteric and just be all over the place. Maybe they see, hey, I didn't know that I wanted to know the answer to this question, but now I'm going to go check it out. So I think whatever you do, it has to be specific. It has to be captivating with the thumbnail and the title. So that's how I'm able to cut through noise with my content. In terms of how I manage distractions, I would say I handle that on two fronts. It's kind of two scales: the small scale and then the big scale. On the micro scale, on a day-to-day basis, I try not to check it in the morning. I mean, and I'll check it at lunch, I'll check it at breakfast. But when I get to the office and I sit down at my desk, I try not to look at it at least for the first hour or two. And then I really try to keep it away in the morning. After lunch, I'll check it or whatever, you know, kind of as I see is necessary. But then, and then on the macro scale, you know, I mentioned a hiatus or two I've gone through. Bill, I agree exactly with what you said. You know, my work comes first and YouTube comes second. So, you know, when it came time for me to study for my exams to get my license, I knew I couldn't do both at the same time because doing the YouTube videos are just real time consuming. It'll take an entire, like 2 full nights a week. And I had to commit to studying every night. So what I did before I knew I was going to take some time off, I tried doing videos every day for 2 weeks. When I say every day, I mean Monday through Thursday, 2 weeks in a row. Then after that, I had to take some time away. And, you know, I have people who were making videos during the same time as me, and their numbers continue to rise and mine kind of plateaued. But at the end of the day, you kind of just have to prioritize and execute. So there are times when you're working on big projects where social media will probably have to take a back seat, but it's ideal that you can find a way to balance it. And if you're working with a larger firm, you know, it's also possible to diversify. Let's say you got one person who commits to posting once a week, you know, maybe they can find a slice of time within their schedule to still pump out content while also still respecting the workload at the office. And I think that it's important to kind of think about it in trends and with the way you approach the schedule.
Absolutely. Let's go to the next slide. How can people connect on a personal level through social media when there seems to be so much noise? So let's stay with you, Drew, because you were talking a little bit about content being king here and cutting through that noise with the content.
I think it's important for the content on social media to be personal and connect to people. I think it's important to be authentic, is what I'm trying to say, because there are on the other end of every computer, right? The internet is a network, and on the other end of every computer is a human being. So it's important to understand that, right? You're not looking at numbers, even though that may be what you see on your YouTube channel or on your likes or your stats, but there's human beings on the other side of that, and you have to respect that. You have to respect who is interested in your content and what they're looking for. And at the end of the day, I think that they're interested in connecting with other people. It's questions. A lot of the questions that I end up answering with my videos are like, should I major in architecture? And it's a very human question, right? Somebody's making the decision, do I want to go into this field of study that everybody says is so difficult, when there's other things I want to do with my life, like have relationships and, have fun in college. And throughout doing my YouTube videos, one way I do that is I don't write scripts. I know that there's people who do. I also don't over polish my videos, and I'm not sure if that's the right move or not. I'm looking at how do I improve my editing skills and how do I make a more aesthetically pleasing video. But at the same time, I try not to overthink that. I think that at the end of the day, it comes down to, can you relate to somebody else as a human being through the computer? And I think that that's what people are looking for the most.
Spot on.
That authenticity is important. Tell us about how you do it, Bill.
What I do is, like, Drew's YouTube channel is very consistent. I use YouTube. I don't have a lot of videos up there. I've got maybe 25. Some of them are short, some of them are longer, some of them are instructional, some of them are advice to potential clients. But just to demonstrate the power of this, when I started putting up even just a few YouTube videos, I started getting calls from clients, and I started going to client meetings, even intro meetings where I've not met them before. And their response to me was, well, I follow you on social media. I feel like I already know you. I mean, the value of that is enormous. You've already connected on a personal level with someone who potentially wants to hire you. So they already have a good opinion of you and your work because they've seen it on social media. They know a little bit about what you're about, and they're calling you to find out how you can help them with their project. So you're already halfway there. And that's with doing very little. So that there's a tremendous power in all of these platforms. And we should all be on social media. We should all be promoting each other. But the most important thing, like Drew said, is you have to be authentic. It has to be you. I mean, a lot of the people who are on this Zoom meeting right now, they know me already. But you can't go on social media and pretend to be something you're not. You will be found out, and no one will follow you. So authenticity is, even if you don't think that people are interested in what you have to say, be authentic. There are other people out there who are like you that are going to connect with you. And this is how this works. It's an incredibly powerful group of platforms, and we should all be taking full advantage of it. So that's my take on that.
Thanks, Bill. And Stacy, what about you? How are you authentic and connect to people on a personal level through your social media platforms?
I think that architects in particular are very concerned about having a very polished presentation, whether it's the post they put together or the quality of their photography. And all of that is critically important. But at the end of the day, it's the relationship between you and your client. So your client has to feel that they like you and can communicate with you, and you are able to listen to them and understand them. So you want to be presenting yourself as an individual who's not going to be intimidating and having that relationship. Particularly if you're a residential client, you want to make sure that the content you're creating or the way you're presenting your page, whether it means you have a photograph of yourself in addition to having your logo and your business content created, but making sure that you are interfacing on a personal level. So I know when you have your business account, your responses come from your business name, not from your personal name. So it's important when you're responding to your clients and you're making those connections that you are able to ensure that you're a human talking to a human, talking about issues related to humans. So bring the personal connection in the way that you interface and respond.
Okay, John, can you give me a click? Can you share with us a time that social media has been successful in the way that you planned? What about unplanned success? Let's stay right here with Stacy.
Successful in a way that was planned. So I will say that over time in particular, I have been able to start to better understand my followers and how and what they respond to for my personal business as well as my AIA business. So for example, I know that no matter what I'm writing about for AIA New Jersey, if there is a headshot of a person, it gets a lot more attention than if it has a picture of a building or the AIA logo or whatever it is. So if I ever can associate the article that we're preparing with an individual who's mentioned in the article or otherwise associated, I know that we'll get more traffic on that post by having a person's headshot there. I also recommend, a lot of times people give me one headshot and they want me to use it for the next 30 years. People like to see varied pictures. So on a regular basis, you should be cultivating your collection of pictures of yourself or whoever it is that you're trying to, and use a variety of different images. You don't have to be bungee jumping, but you know, have a little different angle, be inside sometimes, be outside sometimes, and just that little change can be something to drive traffic.
That's fantastic. Great tip. What about you, Bill?
I like to use social media to, in addition to promoting the profession, I like to use it to drive traffic to my website, my WJM Architect website. One of the things that I did that turned out to be successful, and I had tried to plan for it to be, was I developed several pages on my website to allow clients who are interested in my residential work to punch in some rough square footages and cubic footages and get some costing information back so that they could get some rough idea of how much their construction might cost, you know, based on a very short, easy to use platform that's attached to my website. And that turned out to be hugely successful. Now, I have over 20,000 people following me on Twitter, all kinds of people, and I use that to drive people to my website. Of course, I'm interested mostly in local people, but the calculators that I created were for all 50 states. So I get a lot of traffic from that. Another successful driver that I use in social media is promoting my design philosophy, which I have a page for as well on my website. And between my design philosophy page and the cost calculator page, and nearly 90% of my website traffic goes through those two pages. And by looking at the statistics, I can see that people are coming from all over the world to understand construction costs, and they're coming from all over the world to read my design philosophy. And I mean literally all over the world. I mean, they come from Asia, they come from Europe, they come from Africa, South America. I'm engaging with people all over the place. So some of that, a lot of that was planned. And of course, I'm not taking clients from South America, but I am getting a lot of traffic, which then improves my ability to be found on Google. So, the more you do and the more clicks you get, I'm not talking about ad revenue, I'm talking about activity, the more likely you'll show up in someone searching you on Google. And you want to be found on Google. You want people to be able to find you locally, or at least regionally, so that you can get the opportunity to discuss new projects with them. And has been successful.
Those organic hits save you money because you don't have to pay for AdWords or anything else when you start building up that traffic. So it reduces your overall marketing costs when you're online, when you have that much content and that much traffic to your website.
I pay $0. I have never paid Google for a single ad, but I engage in social media. And if you go to Google and you type in Bill Martin Architect or WJM Architect, your computer's going to melt. There's just so much that comes up. All kinds of things come up. Articles that have been quoted in, house pages, my website comes up, review pages from other sites, all kinds of things. And that is very good, because if someone is engaging with you and they want to know about you, they are certainly going to Google you. If they Google you and they come up with 1 or 2 hits, that's not great. You want to, leverage social media to give yourself a better shot at getting more work. And this stuff works. I can tell you, it works well. Everyone should be doing this. Every architect should be doing this.
Instagram pays a lot of money to make sure that when they search your name, your Instagram account comes up first on the Google search. So if you build out Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, one of those 3 is going to show up first as a social media thing with the name that people are searching for. So their first exposure to you probably isn't going to be your website. It's probably going to be your social media accounts.
That's right. And that's why you want to use your social media to drive people to your website.
Right. Drew, most of your success in social media has been planned. So what about the times that were unplanned successes for you?
So I guess speaking about unplanned success, I went in with the idea that I was going to start providing value to architecture students, and I didn't, because of the nature of the channel. It's not like my target audience. My target audience is not my target client. So it's a little bit of a different engagement for us. I'm not looking for them to come hire me, but what has ended up happening through that has been kind of growing through the network of other social media bloggers within the world of architecture. So going to the AIA events, I've been able to network with people like Michael Rosica and Bob Borson and the guys at the Archie Speak podcast. And so I've networked with all those guys. I've participated in their monthly blog post series that they were doing for quite a while. One thing led to another, and I was also a keynote speaker at the Young Architect Conference that Michael Rosica put on. And that wasn't something that I expected was going to happen when I started doing the YouTube channel. I mean, I guess in the back of my mind, I might have thought about the idea of speaking at some point in the future, but the way it happened, I would say, was unplanned. In terms of planned success, I mentioned, for me, I grew up in the South, and I had 2 items at the top of my bucket list, and that was become a registered architect and move to New York City. And I thought, the YouTube channel is going to help me move to New York City. And it did, actually, because through a while after applying from Atlanta without any connections up here in New York, without anybody to come up here and crash on their couch, I was able to get some interviews at some jobs, and ended up getting a job offer. When I walked in on day 1, after having been given the offer over the phone, the owner of the firm looked at me and said, "I feel like I already know you because I've seen your YouTube videos."
That's authenticity.
Yeah, and that's exactly that connection that you were talking about, Bill, because it's like, to me, I think that the idea of like me trying to get hired by someone and getting a job is similar in a sense to the way that you as a firm are going to be working at getting clients to hire you for their job. Because you have to imagine that, specifically if you're talking about residential, right? You have to imagine that a family who's going to put in effort to picking their architect is going to put in as much effort to picking their architect as they put into selecting the house that they were moving into in the first place, if you're talking about renovations or additions or buying a plot of land. And so stepping into a contractual agreement like that, it takes on a huge risk. There's a risk that they might not deliver. There's a risk that maybe they would deliver, but working with them is going to be like getting dragged through hell. And if you're able to communicate through social media, like imagine if the architect you're looking to hire for your project has 100 videos online, and you can tell that they're well-spoken, they're being helpful, and you understand a lot more about that person. It's much less of a risk to hire that architect because you know more about them. And at the end of the day, I think that's the real advantage that a social media presence allows you. It's not that you're necessarily going to hire every single person who follows you, but it's when that person comes along who would hire you, they see this catalog, they see this backlog of evidence that hiring you is a good decision.
Absolutely.
You get a higher quality level of client. You'll get a client that appreciates you more. Very similar, Drew, to what you were saying about your YouTube channel helping you get a job. you got a higher quality job because of your social media efforts. And I love Mike Rosica, by the way. I absolutely love him. I think he's
Oh yeah, he's the
doing
man.
a fantastic job.
Absolutely.
Next slide, please, John. So, Bill, let's start with you on this one. Who do you follow, and who follows you, basically?
I follow other architects because originally I wanted to connect and promote architecture. I follow journalists and politicians because I want to educate them as to the value of architects. So on Twitter, the nice thing about Twitter, the thing that I really like about Twitter is because you are limited in the length of your message. You can get a little artsy without having to worry about going too far. It's, people on Twitter appreciate, puns and plays on words. And of course, I attach images as well, promote my own work, or if I read a good New York Times story, sometimes what I'll do is when I see a New York Times story, I get the Twitter handle of the reporter. And I'll go to their Twitter and I'll tweet them directly and say, I really enjoyed your story. If you ever need a quote, feel free to contact me. This is my area of expertise. And then they have my Twitter handle, and then they can look at my profile. And I have gotten a lot of opportunities with journalists by doing that. I was quoted in Business Insider. I've been on Fox News. I've been on CNBC, all because of my interactions with Twitter, not just Twitter, but mainly with Twitter. Every journalist in the United States and around the world is on Twitter. So if you're trying to get a message out, that's how you want to do it.
You've built out a following of nearly 21,000 followers on Twitter. That's pretty amazing. How long did it take to do that?
It took about 5 years. I've leveled off in the last few years. Twitter has gotten a lot better about getting rid of inactive accounts. And for a while there were so many people on Twitter, they were just creating new accounts all the time. And you end up following people and they end up following you, and those accounts are dormant. So the numbers go up and the numbers come down as Twitter starts to kind of weed out the inactive accounts. And that's really what has led me to this. But I put out content that people want to read. I use it to drive people to my website, and I share good journalistic work about architecture, and I share good tweets and graphics from other architects. I try to promote other architects. My practice is primarily residential now, but I do commercial work as well. But I try to promote whenever I see good content, and where I see an architect, younger or older, who's using Twitter, and the content is good, and I get it. I'm retweeting that. I'm liking it. I'm trying to leverage it for them, and they're in return leveraging some of my messaging. So there's a kind of a symbiosis that goes on. You follow people, they follow you. You retweet them, they retweet you, and then you can have a worldwide presence. And I engage with people all over the world all the time on Twitter. But the main reason I'm there was to promote architecture, promote the AIA, and to engage with journalists, because I think through journalists, we can educate everyone else.
Absolutely. Stacy, what about you? Who do you follow and who are your followers? What kind of audience do you have built up, and what kind of people are you looking at?
That varies from platform to platform. So on LinkedIn, my followers and people I follow are colleagues, vendors, allied professionals, engineers, and things like that. Headhunters follow me. The traffic that I create for AIA crosses over into my content, because I share AIA content across my own platform too. On Facebook, my followers are more potential clients, so I make it to follow people who I would like to recognize me in my work. I follow all of my colleagues. AIA New Jersey has such a wonderful camaraderie, and I also follow many architects outside of our community for a multitude of reasons. First of all, because I like to be in contact with other people in the profession, but it also helps to build up your algorithm relationship if you are following and encouraging other people that you aspire to follow you. Follow them, comment on their content, share their content. So you want to be connected with your competition as well as your compatible business contemporaries. So it's not only about making contact with your clients, but also making contact with your industry.
And all of these platforms that they offer suggestions for who to follow, and that goes across every platform to almost everybody.
Right.
This is the person you might be interested in following. On my Instagram, I would follow a couple of professional photographers because Instagram's very visual. So I thought that that would be a good place for professional photographers to go. And then hundreds and hundreds of professional photographers started following me. So somehow I got recommended in their lists as somebody to follow because I was showing such an interest in the professional photography industry. So you can become kind of a cross promoter into different industries and become the architect to the photographers or something like that, just by the way that these platforms work, suggesting different people. So if there are a lot of people in a certain industry following you, you will be suggested to other people in that industry more often on those platforms. Drew, what about you? Who are you following?
I try to keep an eye on what's going on in the architecture community on social media because a lot of these people are my friends. But I also say that, you know, I primarily consume content from other industries, and it's in a similar way of how my YouTube channel kind of came to be. I was one of the first people in architecture doing what I'm doing on YouTube. There was a guy named Doug Pat who was doing something similar. He was doing some videos about like architectural definitions. And then there was a guy named Barry Burkus out in California that had done about 5 or 6 videos drawing Prismacolor images about designs he had done. And that was about it. So I got the idea to mentor people, to do mentorship style videos from other sectors, right? The fitness industry. I think the fitness industry on YouTube was oversaturated back before most people even knew what YouTube was. There's 1,000,001 YouTubers talking about how to work out and lift weights and what have you. There was also people over there giving mentorship type of advice. So I was looking at what they were doing, right? And then I said, hey, how do I take this over to architecture? I'm a big believer in the idea of like the cross-pollination of ideas. You can call it interdisciplinary studies, whatever, what have you. So I look at what other people are doing and figure out, hey, how do we bring something like this to architecture? Because sometimes there's other industries that are moving faster online than architecture. So I think that there's a lot to be gleaned from what you see in other places, and then seeing how do you make it, how you adapt it.
I think there's a lot of industries everywhere moving faster than architecture in almost everything. So
Doug Pat is great, by the way. I've also interacted with him quite a bit as well.
Yeah, he's one of the OGs as far as I'm concerned. Oh, you know, and also I want to add to, I mean, something that we haven't discussed here is about the opportunity to branch out into sectors where you're doing business. Like what happened, like at the firm I'm at now, we work primarily with media companies. There are media company organizations where the principals of my firm go down to, you know, their huge conference, the media company conference down in Florida every year, and they go down to that conference. It also makes sense to try to jump into those networks from a stance of like trying to get, you know, trying to understand those people, trying to connect with them and build those types of relationships that might then lead to to a job. But yeah, also don't forget to like look into those areas.
thank you, Drew. John, can we click through to the next slide? So, Drew, do you follow any hashtags?
I think I got a couple of hashtags followed on my Instagram account that are kind of architecture related. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like hashtags are useful, but I don't know how useful they are when you don't know what hashtag to put down. So Stacy, how do we make up hashtags that are useful?
This is a really interesting point. So in order to attract traffic to your content, I recommend that instead of dreaming up hashtags that relate to your particular interest, you do hashtag searches. So if you go into Instagram, for example, there, and I explain it later on in the slides, but you can ask it to tell you what hashtags are trending, and then you should create content that use trending hashtags in your content, because if you're just talking about something in particular to you, people are never going to find you. So your existing followers will be able to see your content, but you're not going to be able to get in touch with new followers. So the benefit of having hashtags and using hashtags is it enables you to connect your content to things that are trending. So you could say, well, my ideal client is a upper middle class residential New Jersey homeowner that wants to put on an addition. So you can use those searches to find out what that audience is talking about and searching for, and then start to generate content that's going to create to those hashtags. You also can identify hashtags that are important to you or your business and ask your social media to notify you or bring those posts to your attention that use those hashtags. So it's a way for you to find relevant content, and it's also a way for you to create relevant content.
That's fantastic. Bill, what hashtags have you created?
I use hashtags extensively.
Yeah.
And I want to echo what Stacy's talking about. Hashtags can be used for a number of purposes. You should not underestimate the power of hashtags to help you find product information. If you're doing research for a project and you're looking for a product, instead of going straight to Google and trying to get through that, because Google, the algorithms are huge, you type a hashtag into Twitter and you'll get companies related to the materials that you're looking for. So in searching, that can be very powerful in helping you kind of cut through the noise of the internet. The other thing about the hashtags is, as Stacy alluded to it, she talked about Instagram, going on Instagram and searching hashtags. What I do with the hashtags is when I develop some content and I want to know what the best hashtag would be to promote that, I go to Google, because Google's connected to everything, every platform, and I literally type in hashtag to promote birthday parties or whatever it is. And Google will give you the rankings of all the hashtags that relate to that subject with a percentage next to it of what percentage of content related to that is using that hashtag. So let's say you want to do home additions. So you search, hashtags to promote home addition for architects. You type that into Google, you're going to get a series of hashtags. You use those hashtags, the ones with the highest percentages. When your content goes out, other people are using those hashtags. You're going to be connected to them. You're going to show up in their searches. Hashtags are very powerful for that reason. But I get my hashtags, if I don't make them up myself, based on the content, I will get them from Google. And that is very effective. You can also find them on Twitter and Instagram. Sometimes there's a panel off to the side, depending on whether you're on your phone or your computer. And they'll list trending topics and they'll list trending hashtags. But they only list the ones that are trending. So, if a rock star said something dumb and they're trending that hashtag, that's not useful to you. So that's why I'll look there, but most of the time I get my hashtags from Google, from Bing, or from Internet Explorer, one of the search engines, because they're all connected to each other. And I found that to be a very powerful way to get very useful hashtags.
That's a great tip. What about you, Drew? Have you been using hashtags?
I got a plugin on so for YouTube videos, I don't think it's exactly hashtags. There's a tags feature that you can associate with your video when you upload. Some friends of mine who are very successful on YouTube said to use a plugin for Google Chrome called vidIQ. They have a free version that gives you a good amount of info, and they'll tell you, if you select a hashtag, it could tell you how often it's being searched, as well as how competitive it is to be at the top. So, and those are two interesting dynamics, right? Because there may be one where you could be at the top of it, but no one's looking for it. And then there's other ones where, maybe everyone's looking for it, but it's so competitive that you're still going to be down on page 3 and no one's going to see your content. So the free version is still kind of hitting the dark. I think if you get the paid version, then they'll tell you which ones are supposedly the best. So that can help kind of narrow down the decision on YouTube.
That's pretty cool. John, can you give me a click through to the next question?
Brian, can I give one more hashtag comment?
Absolutely. I want to hear it.
Yeah, I wanted to recommend for people that aren't familiar with using hashtags, they are a really great way to help your users, your social media users, to find your content. So for example, let's say you're having a dialogue with a particular client on one kind of project type. You can say to them, here are the hashtags on my social media associated with my projects. And they might not be general public hashtags, but they're like, you can name your project, or you can add hashtags to your posts specifically for that project type. So maybe they're all the daycare centers, or they're all the 7-Elevens, or they're all the whatever. And then when your client goes to your page, instead of scrolling through everything you posted for however long, it allows them to very quickly enter in that hashtag and search your content specifically for those project types. And you can do that by project type, project name, or whatever keyword that you want to use. So you can generate your own hashtags and realize that the general public is not necessarily going to be searching for those things, but it's a helpful tool for you to be able to sort and locate content very quickly that goes through your whole account.
That's good. Brian, I have one more comment about that as well. Location hashtags can be very effective as well. If you're working in a region, let's say I happen to be in Bergen County, New Jersey. So if I use the hashtag Bergen County, New Jersey, other people who are searching for Bergen County, New Jersey are going to find that hashtag. So that targets your social media regionally to where you want to target it. You know, someone in Moscow isn't going to be searching the hashtag Bergen County, New Jersey. And you can even do it in individual towns or individual counties or even states. Hashtag New Jersey, hashtag New York. Location hashtags can be very effective to getting your content seen by the people you want to see the content.
That's a great point. Speaking about the content, what content from other producers catches your attention on what platforms when you're consuming social media? Phil.
Okay. I was waiting for you to say who's going to answer this. I happen to like video content. I think it catches your eye. Now, Drew is on YouTube. Those videos tend to be a little bit longer. But what catches my eye is when there's a short video that's attached to a tweet in Twitter. Instagram allows for this as well. And a lot of times what I will do is I will take a static image and I'll turn it into a short video so that the static image moves. When I do that, the number of clicks that I get on that image goes way up. So I happen to like video. Video is interesting visually to people. And, you know, people will read the words, but you've got to get their attention with the image. And if the image is moving, that's going to get their attention.
Stacy, what about you? What do you consume?
I'm probably drawn to interesting photographs. I know on Instagram, some people really do a lot of composition work there, and I love that. I love a little extra attention to how things are put together. So that definitely draws something for me. And like I said, I know our AIA content always attracts people if we have new headshots or close-up headshots. People love that.
Drew, what about you? What are you consuming on the internet when you're there, social media platforms?
I mean, what catches my attention as just somebody who's on the platform. I mean, I don't know. I tend to follow just things that I'm interested in. I follow people who are talking about workouts and training videos. I follow my sports teams and kind of fandoms of those and current events and that kind of thing.
We talked in the past about Gary Vaynerchuk as being a media company, social media influencer. I see his
Yeah.
videos on LinkedIn all the time, popping up. The Gary Vee show is kind of like what propelled him to a little bit of stardom in social media platforms. I remember Gary when he was 16 years old in high school. I used to work for his father at the liquor store. It was a lot of fun back then. But he was a go-getter way back then, even when he would be selling baseball cards on the weekends or going to garage sales to buy and sell stuff from the garage sales. He always had that drive to do something with another level, and social and media became his his vehicle to get there. Of course, they still have the liquor stores, winelibrary.com now. Maybe I should have stayed there instead of becoming an architect. I'd probably be on a yacht instead of talking to all of you right now. But I made a good choice, I think.
Yeah, you brought that up the other day. I was surprised to hear that. That's awesome. I've been following Gary Vaynerchuk for a long time. He was one of the people who kind of helped me decide I was going to try this. And I would say that other people like him, who I also follow, are Seth Godin. He has a written blog, and it's one of the only written blogs that I still read today in 2020. And he's a great thinker, and he's clear and he's concise, and you could tell that he has an understanding of design and what it means to do meaningful work. And so I follow Gary Vaynerchuk a lot, and then guys like Tim Ferriss and Gary Vee. And so a lot of that stuff kind of helps me kill two birds with one stone, because I find it fascinating, but also it helps me see how do you build a business, how do you network and stuff online, and I'm watching them actually do it. So that's kind of been the people who I watch.
Cool. John, click through the next slide for me. So now we're on to creation. What's your process for creating content for sharing? Let's stay with you, Drew.
I try to give the advice that I wish I had gotten when I was in college and starting out in the profession. So because I've been there, I understand my target audience, because I once was my target audience. And a lot of times I'll figure out content through that, but other ways that I do is, now that I have a substantial following, I'm getting questions pretty often on the YouTube channel. So I can tell, let's say if I get more than one person asking for a particular question, I know that there should be a video for this. Or sometimes people have a question that is just too complicated to text. It's too complicated to type out in a comment. It justifies doing a whole video for it. I think that it's important to understand that, a conversation that I have all the time with people is, they say that there's three things that you know. There's things you know, there's the things you don't know, and then there's the things you don't know, right? Like, I know wood frame construction. I don't know quantum physics, but I'm aware that I don't know quantum physics. If I wanted to know it, I could go look it up. But then there's other stuff out there that I don't even know what it is. I don't even know to go ask for it. I don't know how to ask for it. And that is the most valuable thing to someone, right? So if you, as an expert, you can identify what people probably don't know. Like, for example, how many of your clients know to ask if a 2x4 is actually 2 inches by 4 inches, right? There's so many things that other people need to know. You can provide that to them. To me, I think that's what mentorship really is. So I try to identify those things that people don't realize that they need to ask, and then give that to them before they even know that they need to know it.
I like that. I like that a lot. So what you're seeing on the slide here is something that Bill and Marissa and I came up with at an AIA New Jersey meeting. We're all sitting in the corner having a good time talking about going to grassroots and what we could do since Bill wasn't going. So Flat Architect came out of this story. A year before in San Diego, I had Flat Stanley, which was a second grade project for my daughter. And I had 2 years before. And I was taking pictures up on stage of Flat Stanley and at Grassroots in San Diego. And I'd been taking pictures of Flat Stanley all across Southern California. Everywhere I went, I took pictures of this Flat Stanley. Of course, my wife and I made 17 different Flat Stanleys and had them all laminated, and we sent them all over the world to get pictures from all of our friends. So our daughter had the most robust Flat Stanley book ever. And Tom Veneer, who was president of AIA at the time, said, "Brian, what are you doing?" And his daughter Pascal is 24, 25 now, so she had not encountered Flat Stanley. Yeah, I told him the whole story about Flat Stanley's. He asked me, "Is that your only Flat Stanley?" Well, of course not, Tom. I made 17 and they're laminated, not to get damaged. So I sent Flat Stanley along with Tom Veneer, and Flat Stanley went to Africa, he went to Paris, and I got pictures back of Flat Stanley going all over the place and written descriptions from Tom of everything. So it was really nice to have my daughter make a connection like that with a famous architect who was basically leading the profession for us at the time through just a simple idea. So I relayed the story, and we thought, let's bring Flat Architect along. And everybody loved the idea. I'm just showing you examples here on the slide with next year's president of AIA. But we got pictures all over the place, all over New Orleans with Flat Architect. And it gave us the opportunity to push that content out with a hashtag. So Bill, tell us more about what you were doing behind the scenes while I was out taking pictures.
Well, after we decided, I mean, it was really just a flippant comment. I said to Brian and Marissa, I said, you know, I'd really like to go to Grassroots. I can't. Maybe I'll just give you a picture of myself. You can take it, and then I'll feel like I'm there. And then we didn't talk about it for like a month. And then as Grassroots started to approach, I contacted Brian, and we made these hand placards. And the original idea was Flat Architect like Flat Stanley. I used my image. But there's a white space at the bottom so that we can actually dry erase and maybe add information. But I never expected it to take off the way it did. I mean, we were laughing about it, but oh my God, everybody at Grassroots wanted a picture with Flat Stanley. So Brian's at the event, and you know, Flat Stanley's going around, and he kept sending me images, texting me images, and while I'm getting the images, I'm cleaning up the images, because not all of them were suitable for posting.
That happens with content sometimes.
Yes. I cleaned up the images and I started pushing them out on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, on some of the section Facebook pages, on AIA New Jersey's Facebook pages, and it just kind of exploded from there. So we're expanding this concept, but then then COVID came. So I put a mask on Flat Architect because I didn't want him to get COVID, but you know, we started pushing that out for a little while, but now we're kind of stuck. We want to take Flat Architect to other building conferences and use it as a way to generate content and bring attention to the conferences that we attend, both to attract other architects to attend them and to attract other architects to the AIA. And you know, my image is only the first one. We are in the process now of developing a more robust Flat Architect grouping with a variety of other AIA members to demonstrate our wonderful diversity. We're going to start with some of our New York members, and then Flat Architect is going to be other architects. It's going to be men, women, people of color, different races, different, anything different about that. We're going to make up a whole slew of Flat Architect. And the idea was to take them to Los Angeles, but everything got canceled because of COVID. So we're holding on to that idea, but get ready for that, because next year when we're in Philadelphia, or if there's another conference where we're getting together, Flat Architect is going to be front and center. So I'm very happy we just kind of happened onto this, but it's great fun. It really was great fun. And it shows us to be real people. We're authentic people. This is an actual image of me. It really was very interesting and surprising.
Oh, and when I was taking the pictures with different people, they started asking, "What is that?" They were getting really interested in, what are you doing? And just taking the time to be creating the content created some buzz about the content. So that was a lot of fun. So
it was a great icebreaker. Yeah.
Go ahead, Drew.
Bill, I know that we've spoken about this before, but just for everyone listening, one of the things I love about this idea is it's kind of like it's a recurring system. It gives you an excuse to take a bunch of photos. It gives you an excuse to generate more content, and it's an inside joke. It's not intrusive. It's the kind of thing that can recur. In my life, I try to have systems in place where I say all my friends were getting together on Taco Tuesdays or something like that. Some kind of recurring memes, a recurring idea that helps you generate more stuff. I don't know if somebody in their architecture firm could generate like a building science Saturdays or whatever. Like, it gives you an excuse to post however often about whatever piece of content you have.
Stacy, you have to create content as part of your job for the AIA. What's your process for creating that content and sharing it?
So there are a variety of things that you need to consider. First of all, you need to think about what platform is most appropriate for the content, and then cultivate the right material for that platform. So for example, if you're going for your Instagram audience, then you want to have the photo be your primary element and have a short caption and your hashtags tied into that. If you are going for your Facebook audience, it's great there to incorporate a poll or ask a question. So that's a way to get people engaged and interfacing with what you're posting on Facebook. If you're going for Twitter, you want to have something that's short and punchy and will be something that will attract engagement and sharing your tweet. And the content itself, sometimes it's something that you're planning for a while. Maybe it's something that you're doing specifically for marketing, or maybe it's something that you want to talk about, something you're doing right now. So I've seen architects take a snapshot of them in a meeting and say, you know, today the firm's brainstorming our summer marketing campaign, or we're working on a site plan, or we're actually drawing a rendering, and they'll actually have a picture of somebody working on something. Sometimes they're posting about content that's already been created, whether they're photographing a project that's completed. So there should definitely be strategy put into that, you know, and that's part of the humanity. So showing people in your office who are sitting at their desk working on something makes that human, authentic connection between what's going on in the office and what's going on outside. And particularly, I have found clients love to get little peeks at something going on with their project. So if you have a client who you know is active on social media, it's great to do some interim updates on what's going on, and don't send it to them particularly, but just post it on your social media in general, and that creates a lot of buzz and interest too, which is great.
I want to stay with you, Stacy, but John, can you click through to the next question? What are some of the top viewed, liked, and shared content examples that you've seen because you have most access between your personal, your business, and AIA stuff? What are some of those elements that they have?
Well, you have to think carefully about what your headline is going to be, your tagline. You know, how are you going to grab people with that? And that line, you don't want it to tell the whole story, but you want it to tell enough of the story that makes them either click open the article or read further into what you're writing. Of course, it should have a terrific photograph. You'll see on almost every platform that having a great photograph will help to drive traffic to what you're working on. And that doesn't mean that you have to do something fancy or use a professional camera, but it does mean think about your quality of lighting. If it's a video, think about your audio quality. Audio quality is one of the biggest deal breakers for video if it's not done properly. So think about those things, and also think about who you tag in your post. So if you, like I know Bill will always comment and share something that I post, and I try to do that vice versa for him. So even though we may be competing architects at the end of the day, two residential Bergen County architects, we're still driving interest towards each other and sharing content and comments. And when you tag influencers that you know are involved, you know that you're going to start to get interest driven towards your post by doing that.
That's fantastic. I just want to click through to the next slide. And then let's just play this video of Drew. He sent me a little clip of one of his videos. It looks very professional. Let's just watch it for a minute.
What's up? I'm architect Drew Paul Bell, and in this video, what I want to talk about is the process of becoming a licensed architect. Your license is actually administered by your state, meaning that's going to happen in whatever jurisdiction you live in. So, like I live in Georgia. I got my initial license here in Georgia. Once you get your initial license in a particular state, it's not that hard to get your license in other states. A lot of people do it all the time.
So on this slide, there's 4 questions that are really just one question. And they've been in the chat too. Many of our attendees want to know these things. What are your best strategies for what to share, when to share, what platform? Do you use any software for scheduling these posts? Let's start with you, Drew, since you were in the clip.
Yeah, so this little clip I think gives an example of the types of videos that I do. The original video is much longer than this, but what I'm doing here is I'm trying to educate. All right, there's a lot of people who have asked questions about how do you become a registered architect, and just because you figured it out doesn't mean someone else has figured it out yet. And they can go read all the blogs from NCARB, but maybe they need someone to explain it to them. So that's what I was doing here. And then there's also questions beyond that I had, which is like, all right, let's say you get your first license in Georgia, but you want to move to New York. How do you do that? And so at the end of the day, what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to educate. Now, as I said earlier, my target audience is going to be a little different than a professional firm, but I still think that the notion of trying to educate is beneficial because it goes back to the idea of social proof, right? You're establishing yourself as an authority in the field. It helps potential clients understand, respect you, and it also shows them that you know what you're talking about, and it helps them to learn more about the process. And you could educate them about many things. You could educate them about the design process, about your design process, about the neighborhood that you work in and the historic context, the architectural context. There's plenty of ways to get creative about exactly what you do. And it's also good to test out different strategies because you'll see which ones go well and which ones don't. In terms of like, another pattern that I've noticed about which of my videos are the most successful versus which ones are less successful is the most successful ones answer one of 3 questions. It's, can I do this? Should I do this? How do I do this? There's people who are unsure if they should major in architecture. They don't know how to use the computer programs. They don't know if they should or if they can or if they're capable. They're like, one of my most viewed videos is, can you do architecture if you're bad at math? Another one of my most common videos was how to sketch like an architect. And I actually ended up taking it down because I didn't think my sketches were that good. But like it had gotten over 100,000 views. And other videos that have gotten a lot of views have been about like, how do you do this thing? And it's, they want to be educated. They want to learn how. I think that you can take that lesson and apply it to a firm by talking about, should you hire an architect? Can you do a renovation here? Can you afford it? The biggest questions that people ask, and it's usually the ones people don't want to answer, which is how much does it cost? How long is it going to take? And if you can provide a type of knowledge to someone about that, then you're educating them. I think that that's the strategy that's going to be successful, and that's what you should share. Is the things that help educate.
Those are fantastic tips. Bill, tell us a little bit about what your strategies are for what to share, when to share, which platform.
Sure. I completely agree with everything that Drew said. His mission, he's out there to educate. I feel the same way. I want to be out there to educate the public on the value of architects. I mean, he's reaching out to architecture students. I'm reaching out to, mostly the journalists and the politicians who can then understand the value of what architects can bring to them. So I'm engaging in this educational process too. As far as, what to share, I usually will look for architecture-related articles to share. I might throw a comment or 2 in about how either I would have done it differently or maybe I wouldn't have done it differently. The most important thing, I don't use any software to schedule my posts. The flow of information for me is completely organic. And again, you want to try and maintain that authenticity as much as possible. But as far as, what you post and how you state it, you need to always stay positive. Never post negative comments. Don't be negative with other people on social media. It will kill off any chance of you having any followers or any real serious engagement. And it will also paint you in a bad light in terms of any people who are seeing your social media. So you don't want to engage in arguments, and you don't want to take positions and defend them in ways that are negative or derogatory towards anyone. So you have to be careful about it. I would say, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should.
Right.
You should use that as a rule as you post things.
And the internet has a very long memory. You may think you can take something down, but even if it's up for just a few seconds, it was there, somebody got it. Especially if you have 21,000 followers. There's been a lot of talk lately about whether social media should be regulating these posts from different people based on their content. And we'll have to see how that goes forward. But as of now, nearly everybody can speak their mind on these platforms as they wish. So it is very important to be careful about what you do post, because the internet has the best memory ever. So Stacy, tell us a little bit about what your strategies are for what to share, when to share, which platform, and whether you use any software to schedule your posts.
So at the end of this slideshow, there are some strategies for each different platform, and I include in there data from the platforms on what times a day people interface with that platform the most. So you can use that directly to help you. But for example, I like to have an AIA post ready in the morning. I find that a lot of our followers log into AIA New Jersey right away. I'm assuming when they're having their coffee or something like that, but we get a lot of traffic even before people get to work. And in the morning, it seems like people are concentrating on what they're doing at work. And then we get a little more traffic at lunchtime. But again, it depends on what platform. Like LinkedIn, which is primarily for business, really tracks that way. Like it's to post things right before lunch because they always will have people scrolling through there at lunchtime. So depending on the audience type and the content type, that will help guide you into which platform to use. And then that information at the end of the presentation will guide you with that. But as far as when to share on a bigger scale, business, I would say try to post something at least once a week. It doesn't always have to be a new post. You can repost something that you shared a few weeks ago, or you can, one of the things I always recommend, and I don't think people do it often enough, is you can always go into AIA New Jersey's blog and search for an article related to something that you're doing in your office or something that's going on in the news, and share that. If you don't have time or you're nervous about creating content, on your business page, share something that we are generating for you at AIA New Jersey as a free member benefit, and that starts to generate conversation and traffic for you.
That's a great segue into our next slide. You want to click through, John? So how can we still build a following without creating tons of new content? Bill, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
You don't have to create tons of new content. And I agree with Stacy that when you create some good content, you can post it several times. You got to be careful with Facebook in that, but you can change it a little bit and repost it. I do this on Twitter all the time. I'll post the very similar tweet with very similar messaging 3 and 4 times, even in the same day. It's all slightly different because you catch different people at different times of the day. Twitter actually moves pretty fast. But you don't need to create tons of content. What you want to do is you want to be active and you want to share. Share the content you see. Share the content of people you know. Share the content of people you don't know with a nice comment about how nice it is or wonderful it is or what a great design. I mean, it doesn't have to be a lot of words. But all of that sharing lets them know that you're open to sharing their work. They'll start to share yours. So then the content spreads around through this concept of sharing. I mean, I call it leveraging. I mean, Stacy and I work very closely together to leverage the blog post in the AI New Jersey blog. Our AI New Jersey blog gets a lot of activity because Stacy posts something, I see it, I leverage it on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and we do this repeatedly during the day. So we're pushing content out that we're creating through our personal accounts. And it creates a lot of activity for AIA New Jersey. So, again, as I said before, my main purpose in doing this is really to promote the profession and to help my colleagues to have an improved practice. So this is how we're doing it, by leveraging. And the way you get leveraging from others is by sharing and posting their content as well as your own. So you don't even have to create content as long as you share and you're open and you're authentic and you're kind. Always stay positive. Always be positive, no matter what.
John, can you click through to the next question? What are you passionate about outside of architecture? Do we see that on your social media? This was also asked in the chat or Q&A questions. What kind of stuff do we see on your web page, on your social media pages that's not architecture? Bill, tell us.
Okay. I have a tremendous interest in the economics of design. The underlying mathematics of the economics that buttress what we do as architects is extremely interesting to me. So I tend to focus on the economic side of things because that drives a lot of the decision making that goes on with developers, builders, and owners of projects. I find that fascinating. I also ride a unicycle, but you don't see too much of that on my social media.
How about you, Drew? What do we see on your social media that's not architecture?
I don't think I post a lot that's non-architecture. I guess on my Instagram, I'll post some stories and photos from my day-to-day life. But in general, I try to keep on brand from the YouTube channel. I know that people are there to see they're there to learn, they're there to get content. And I think that at the end of the day, I try to draw the line about talking about myself too much. I'll bring in stories that help reinforce the point, but I think that a trap that a lot of people fall into when they're starting out on YouTube is they kind of sit on their bed and then they talk about their day. And I just don't think that's all that interesting. So I try to stay away from that as much as I can. But at the same time, I think that there's value in saying, hey, I'm like Gary Vaynerchuk, for example, loves the Jets. All right, he'll talk about the Jets or whatever on his Twitter. That's great. If you can integrate that kind of a thing, I think it's a good thing to do. But it's not something I've done a lot of personally.
And Stacy, what about you?
On my business pages, I pretty much only post work or something that I'm doing related to business. So I might post public speaking engagement. I might post, if I'm volunteering at a Girl Scout meeting or for Jersey Steam Tank, or if I'm at an AIA meeting. So something still business related, but something that I'm personally doing as an architect. I am very conscious of the fact that anyone who's following me on social media from a business perspective is probably also searching for me personally. And so I do vary the security level of my personal social media pages. So for example, some personal pages are completely locked down to anyone who's not one of their friends or followers. And to me, that always looks a little bit suspect. On the other hand, what's going on behind, the curtain. So I vary the security level of things that are on my personal page. So if I'm working on an art project or I have an interesting dish that I cooked or something like that I might be posting, I will allow a global permission on that so that my the general public who might be looking for me from a business perspective would also see some content on my personal page.
One of the tips that I have about this kind of thing is I will kind of reverse stalk my potential clients. If somebody's asking for a meeting with me, I will check them out on social media and I'll see what their interests are. That way I already kind of know what kind of things my interests and their interests align with. And it's somewhere where I can start to build a rapport with a potential client because I already know what they might be interested in, whether it's fitness or it's trucks or it's the Jets or something like that. At least I'll have some ammunition to know what their interests are that I can talk with them about before we get into the architecture. It's just a little tip to get to know somebody before you go to a meeting, and it's all there.
That's a good idea. Maybe, you know, Stacy said before when she started out, she was stalking old boyfriends. Maybe you can stalk some of Stacy's old boyfriends and
If they have an architecture job, I will sign them up. John, can you click through to the next slide? So this question also came up in either the chat or the Q&A, and we're getting to it now. Do you use any special equipment for your content creation? You know, for me, it's just the phone. I don't have any special camera, special microphone, anything else. I have a webcam on my laptop, and I have a Samsung Galaxy S9. And those are the only things I use to take pictures or create videos. Drew, you have to do a little bit more for your YouTube channel. What do you use? Do you have a whole studio setup, studio lighting, special microphone, snazzy camera?
Yeah, it's grown over the years. One of the things that I started out with just a Sony Handycam. Some advice that I got early on was they said, get the type of camera that inspires you to pull it out and use it. And so I think that that's an important way to start. Like, you don't have to have the top of the line everything before you begin. I think that a lot of people kind of fall into paralysis by analysis in that they use that collecting stuff to be a distraction, and then they don't actually pull the trigger. So to start, I wouldn't stress out about it too much. I would say focus primarily on getting a microphone, and you can use your cell phone. Like, people forget the cell phones were initially designed to talk into. They weren't just like computers. So the microphones on the built-in mics and camera on cell phones are actually really good. You can use that audio. Focus on getting pretty good audio first, and people will forgive poor quality video, but they won't forgive poor quality audio if it's bad. When I started out with just a Sony Handycam that I got for a birthday. And then as time went on, I was able to upgrade. I tried using a DSLR that I had, but a critical feature was it didn't have the screen that flipped around. So that meant I couldn't record by myself. I had to recruit my roommate to go out with me somewhere to record, and then we'd get out there and the battery was dead. And then I felt bad because I dragged this guy along with me. You know, like, as time went on, though, I stepped up my rig system, and I got a Canon Rebel T6i that's got the camera. It's got the screen that flips around. It's not the top of the line camera, but it's a DSLR. It does the job. I got a Rode mic, a Rode shotgun mic. You know, I didn't even plan this, but I got it right here. It's so this is my camera, and I got the microphone up top, and the mic picks up a lot of side audio sometimes, and I'm looking to upgrade and get a new one. That would be more of a lapel mic. But you can do research and figure out kind of what's the best. I edit with Adobe Premiere Pro. I got the Adobe Creative Cloud, and Premiere Pro is their video editing software. That's what I use to cut and make edits. All that stuff gets pretty intensive, but if you were committed to doing a bunch of YouTube videos, like, I think it makes sense. If you just want to use what's available, I don't know how many architecture firms work on Macs, but iMovie is sufficient. I made amateur videos with edits on like funny cuts of like football games on an iMovie from my Mac at one point. And you know, you can use whatever's at your disposal. I recommend starting out with whatever you have.
Thanks. Stacy, what about you? Do you have any special equipment that you have to use?
I do like using both my phone and my laptop, but I don't use any other special equipment besides that. In fact, I find the ability to generate content at any time from your phone to be one of the luxuries that enables the general population to be able to easily engage on social media. So while depending on the quality of, I mean, I won't even say quality, because you can create great quality content with your phone also. It just, it's more about planning and being cautious, you know, making sure the lens is clean, making sure you know, take a breath before you take a picture and hold steady to make sure you're getting good quality photographs. And don't hesitate to take 50 photographs and delete 49 of them if that's what you're comfortable doing. You know, so I think it all depends on the type of consumer and creator you are.
Cell phone videos work best in landscape. Please turn your phones. Turn your phones.
Well, it depends on what you're trying to do. You know, I mean, if you're producing videos like Drew is, for, for consistency and specific audience. That's one thing. But I don't use any special equipment. I use my phone. I use my computer, my laptop. I have a small camera that I use every once in a while. You don't want to make this complicated. It's more important that you get out there, interact, exchange information with colleagues and with other people, educate the public, your clients, people you don't know, educate them about the value of architects, get the message out. That's more important. Don't worry, don't buy special equipment. Your phone is an enormous tool. Your phone and your desktop, and your phone and your laptop, that's all you need. That's really all you need. Keep it simple.
John, can you click through to the next question? So what's the right size or length of my content? Drew, why don't you share with us what's the right size or length of my content?
On YouTube, a lot of my videos are between 3 and 15 minutes long. There's a few that go a little longer and a few that are a little shorter. It kind of just depends on. I try not to let it drag on too long. And there's a lot of people talking about how nobody has any attention span anymore. But that's not really true, because some people watch podcasts that are 3 hours long, and some people think that those 3 hour long podcasts are beginning to put news media out of business. If you're engaging enough, you can hold people for as long as you want. It kind of just depends on the quality of the content. But I find that for me, between 3 and 15 minutes is about how long I need to convey the ideas of my YouTube videos.
I try to keep almost all of my posts, whether they're text, video, anything, even photographs, just kind of abbreviated. If I see somebody with photographs on Instagram stacked 10 deep, I don't really want to flip through all 10 photographs. I'm in scrolling mode, scrolling. I'm going to stop when that content is what I need to see at that moment. It's got to grab my attention at the moment. And that might be different for me at different times. So there's so much content on social media. Chances are something will pop up that grabs my eye. And if it doesn't, I put the phone down. I'm done with it for that 5-minute stretch or whatever that I was doing. But for you, Bill, what's the right length and size of the content that you're posting?
All right, we live in a soundbite society now, and no one's paying attention to anything. You got to get their attention. You got to deliver the information to them within 1, 2, 3 sentences. It's got to be quick. This is part of why I like Twitter so much. Grab them with an image, get your message attached to that image, and try to keep it as short as possible. There's 2 reasons for this. One is people will actually hear your message, and the other is it shows that you have respect for the time of other people who are engaging in social media. It's important. You want to show respect for other people's time.
So Stacy, tell us a little bit about this question. I know that sometimes you have to push out a lot of information in one post. How do you manage to get people to read through it?
I think some tools to use for this. Well, first of all, let's say for your business, you took a variety of great photographs. Chances are people are only going to see the first couple of them. So you might want to instead have 5 or 6 different posts over the next 2 weeks that each capture 1 or 2 or 3 of the photographs, instead of having one post with 10 photographs in it. Depending on how, if it's something that's time sensitive, then of course you're not going to do that, but that's one way to stretch out your content and use it more efficiently. I also recommend that you spend some time editing before you post. So if you're at a lecture and you want to say something about what's going on at the lecture, maybe you only use a quotation of a single sentence that the speaker offers up in their presentation. It's also great to be able to link longer, larger content into your social media post instead of posting the whole big thing. You'll see very often on Facebook, people will have a really long, wordy post, and it'll actually say, I'm having a test to see if any of my friends would actually read a post that's this whole big, long thing.
Yeah,
and
don't do that.
It's because people don't read those.
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah.
Better off to have 1 or 2 photographs, something to say. If it's linked to something larger, You can incorporate that link into the post depending on what platform it's on, if it's on LinkedIn or Facebook. Or on Instagram, you can include a link in your bio and then reference that for people to get more content there. But keep your social media posts pretty well edited.
Thank you. Let's click on through to the next slide. So have any of you attempted to monetize your presence on social media? I have not. I have not tried to make any money off of any platform yet. That doesn't mean I will in the future. It just means that I haven't decided that that was the route I was going to go. I try to use social media to drive business to my main business, which is architecture. What about you, Bill?
I'm not interested in monetizing my social media presence. My goals in social media are to promote the profession of architecture, to promote my colleagues to the best extent that I can, and to a lesser extent promote my own practice. And I believe in the power of sharing. So I'm not really interested in earning money off of my social media presence. That's not why I'm doing this.
So Drew, have you made enough money to get that yacht yet off of social media?
My joke is I don't make enough money on social media to quit my day job. I don't even make enough to take a vacation. Somebody told me one time when I started out, they were talking about blogging, and they said that on blogging, you can either make money on your blog or because of your blog. And the same thing goes for all the social media stuff, right? So the business model of running a YouTube channel is you get enough attention that then you could sell ads on the YouTube channel. Now it could be that pre-roll ads, like whenever you're watching YouTube, you click skip the ad, or you got little banner ads at the bottom. YouTube, Google, they coordinate all of that. They handle the negotiations and they set it up. They built the platform. You provide the content, and they get the ad in there. You get a cut, and YouTube gets a cut. Now, through doing all that, that's one way of going about things. Another way of going about things is that you you build your social media platform, you build awareness around you and your brand, and then you sell whatever product you're selling on the side, right? So this is the difference between making money on your blog or because of your blog, right? You use the blog to then drive awareness and traffic to your primary business. And I think that that's the model that most architecture firms would be working in, not necessarily focused on getting ad revenue on the channel. But I mean, you do have the opportunity to do that. You can do you can let Google AdSense load up the commercials on your YouTube channel. You could also contact companies. You could look at ones who have been sponsors of big events in the past, call them up and say, hey, I have a targeted audience here of whoever they are. Do you have interest in buying ad space on here? And you can do that, but I'm not sure that's really worth the effort. I feel like it's a little bit more personal when you're not beholden to a brand and you're just talking about providing value to the people. And then you're like, oh, and by the way, I have a service. So if you'd like to hire me personally, here's where you can contact me. I think that's a better strategy for someone in this space.
This next question, John, could you click through one, is for Stacy. How do you measure the success of the social media accounts you manage? It was also asked in the chat.
Yeah.
Well, we do track our, each social media platform will provide you with data on what's going on with your platform. So we do track that at AIA New Jersey to see which platforms are getting more traffic than others and when are those peaks and valleys. So I would not say that our goal at AIA New Jersey is to gain more members. I mean, it would be great if we gain more members because of what we're doing on social media, but our goal is really to improve our communication on a few different levels. We want our members to be more in touch with what's going on. We also want the public to be more engaged in what we're doing. So prior to having social media opportunity, we were really only talking to our own members unless we had something in the newspaper. Now we're able to interface with the public every single day.
That's fantastic. Let's click on through to the next slide. This is one of my favorite things about social media is it has global reach. You can really literally talk to anybody anywhere in the world that has an internet connection. So how far does your reach go? Bill?
Well, you can see on this slide on the left, my website and my design philosophy was the subject of a thesis paper from an architecture student in Malaysia. And on the right is an interaction I had with an architecture student in the Philippines, whose professor asked the class to do a reaction paper regarding my design philosophy. So, you know, this is an example of how powerful these platforms are. If you produce content that is interesting and positive and helps people, you literally have a global reach. And I'm sitting here in my small studio in Westwood, and I'm communicating with the world. I don't expect to get clients in Malaysia. I don't expect to get clients in the Philippines. But the point is that you can really reach people. You can make it. Communication is powerful. These platforms you can make a difference in this profession. We all need to try to do this. We all need to get our messages out. We need to promote the profession collectively, educate the world, educate the public, educate politicians and journalists. And I can't say this enough. Please, everyone on this Zoom conference, please try to do more social media. Try to engage more.
Can we click through to the last slide in the presentation here? This is the most exciting thing for me that's been happening in social media lately is communities. Communities are popping up all over Facebook and other social media platforms. Have you joined or created any social media communities? Stacy, let's start with you.
We have, AIA New Jersey has our page where we post our own content, and then we also have a discussion group, which is a place where a lot of our members engage with each other or share news from their firms. That's been pretty successful.
Yeah, I think the communities are very exciting because they're a group of people that have a particular interest. So it's not a shotgun approach anymore. Now you've got a laser approach for those people. You can find the communities that you need to talk to, and you've got an already built audience in that community if you can get into that community. It also allows for people in a global reach to come together in different places. Like we were talking about Mike Rosica before. The reason he's been so successful is he's cultivating a community of young architects that need help in getting licensed. And that community is supporting each other, whereas they hadn't had that support from architecture firms and quite frankly from the AIA like they needed before. So he was filling a gap. And now everybody else is trying to come in and duplicate his success in creating that kind of community. I think it's fantastic that it's moved online. We created this Parents in Architecture group. It's a closed group, but if there are any parents in architecture that would like to join, go ahead and get your Facebook on and search up Parents in Architecture, and I will let you into the group. Click through to the next question. Do you post content or cross-post content to specific communities? Bill, why don't you start with this one?
Yes, I belong to a number of architecturally related communities. Not all of them are just architects. Some of them are allied professionals. Some of them are homeowners. There is a variety of communities on Facebook.
Historical preservation?
Excuse me? Yeah, historical preservation. Absolutely. And I do cross-post. I will post on one community, then the next, then the next. Sometimes I will share the AIA New Jersey blog posts. Sometimes I share relevant articles relevant to that community. And then you'll find you have a lot of interaction. You get to talk and chat with people through the platforms, and you can learn things and you can teach them things. Brian, we're running out of time. We should probably... Right.
Well, this is the last minute, so we're going on to the last slide, which is the Q&A period. So we have 10 minutes for Q&A. There were a few questions. Many of them we've answered. But if there are more, everybody can just start. Which Frank asks, which social media outlet do most people use? Does it vary regarding the subject and type of information being posted? Thanks. So yes, I think we've answered this, especially about Twitter being the type that is shorter posts, more poetic. An anonymous attendee asked, and this is relevant, we haven't gone to, what's the best way to manage a crazy client who may not have been happy on social media other than blocking them? Bill, why don't you handle this? Because we've had this situation happen to one of our members before that you've helped out of a gym.
Yes, I was contacted by a member on Christmas Eve, and they were in a panic because there was a client that was inappropriately blaming them for something that didn't occur. So I literally dropped everything that I was doing on Christmas Eve to help this person because they were very distraught about what was going on. So I said, listen, don't respond right away. Give me a few minutes. We'll have it. I called her on the phone. I walked her through it. And I said, no matter what you do not say anything negative. I said, you post positive commentary back. They are blaming you for something. You post what a wonderful client they were and how you enjoyed assisting them with their project. And you really worked hard to try and satisfy their requirements. And she was able to do that. And it took a few hours, but at the end of that period of time, the client that was upset had completely retracted everything that they had said.
That's fantastic.
It does work. You need to know how to manage these things. I've done this a few times. So if there's anyone on this seminar that is afraid of this, do not be afraid of this. And if you get into a situation, contact me directly, and I will help you as much as I can to overcome this. It says a lot about the character of the person is how they respond to the negative commentary. But never post negative commentary yourself, and never criticize someone or insult someone's intelligence online. It is not right. It is not what this medium is for. We want to engage and we want to educate. But don't be afraid if someone is attacking you for something you didn't do. We can help you with that. So please don't be afraid of that.
So here's another question for the entire panel. I have seen some of my own projects posted on Pinterest and Instagram without any credits. Is there any way of protecting our own content or protecting our designs? Stacy, do you have any comments or help with this?
That is a really interesting one. I mean, ultimately, once you put anything on the World Wide Web, people can steal it and modify it and do something to it and with it. So not really. Most social media platforms, if you find somebody is stealing your content and pretending that it's theirs, you can contact the platform itself, and they may assist you in either having that person removed from social media or whatever. But it is important to realize once you put something out there, it's able to be manipulated, and it's difficult to remain your contact from unscrupulous people.
So one tip is you can watermark your photos too. Like you could just have a set watermark with your signature and copyright date and put it in the corner of your photos before you post them online. It's not that difficult to do, but if somebody wants to know what a gorgeous house that is, I wonder who the architect was, wouldn't it be great if your watermark was in the corner?
But somebody can crop that off.
Oh, of course.
This happened. Yeah, they can defeat that, Brian. This happens to me a lot. When I find it, and you can search images you can reverse search images on Google too and find some of your own work. I will post a comment, and the comment is usually like, what a nice surprise. I didn't expect my work to be displayed here in this way. I invite you to contact me if you would like to display more of my work. Stay positive. Make it into something funny or something positive. Don't attack the person for doing it. Sometimes they're doing it because they really admire what you're doing, and maybe they want to steal a little bit of your thunder. I wonder if this has ever happened to Drew. Drew, has this ever happened to you?
I have an interesting philosophy on this. Somebody took one of my videos and posted it on their Instagram account, and this is actually, I hadn't even thought about this. This happened just recently. They posted it on Instagram, and then while it was the first image, they went and followed a bunch of people I follow. They went and followed a bunch of my friends, and over the course of like an hour or two, they collected a bunch of my friends because my friends thought I was associated with those guys, and I wasn't. Now, my philosophy on sharing work, I think they have to split it up into two different considerations, right? If one scenario is somebody is posting your work and presenting it like it is theirs, and they're saying, hey, I'm an architect and I designed this, then I think you can contact them and go after that. I would try to shut that down as much as I could, respond to them, let them know, and tell them that I think that there's copyright or trademark laws. I'm not super familiar with all that. But what I do know is there are meme accounts that kind of just repost images. And I would not be upset about someone like that just sharing a photo of yours. And like if they didn't give you credit, that's not really good etiquette. But at the end of the day, like, you know, I had this conversation with the principal at my old office. I said we should share plenty of this stuff. He was worried about details going out or whatever. But I said, like, I mean, listen, man, if no one's following you, you're not a leader. If you're the design guy that everyone's trying to copy your work, you want that to be the scenario, right? If you're the best designer, or your style or whatever it is, and other people are trying to knock it off, what are they going to do? Go hire some poor man's version of your design style? Even if you say, oh, they're going to provide something similar for cheaper. If they're doing a better job at it, then they deserve to have the economic advantage. If you're doing a better job at it, they're going to take away all the cheap clients that weren't going to pay you full rate anyway. They're going to come in and negotiate why there's some cheap. If they're going to take the cheapskate like knockoff, they weren't going to pay you the fees you deserved anyway. I wouldn't lose too much sleep over that. And maybe, you know, I'm not running my own firm, so maybe somebody who does would have a different opinion. But that's, you know, just my 2 cents. That's the way I would tend to look at it.
I completely agree with that. I think you
Another question? What percentage?
Brian, can you pause 1 second?
Yeah.
John, if we run out of time, how can we answer the rest of these questions? And where can the followers of this webinar find the rest of the slides?
So you're more than welcome to answer these offline if you would like. And then tomorrow, everyone will get a copy, link with the copy of the deck. And then we can also send them written responses as a follow-up if you guys would like to answer other questions, or if anybody has any.
Thank you. And so everybody who's participating today, after there are a few additional slides that we didn't show in the presentation today, but those are available as individual tips on each of the different platforms. Tips for Instagram, tips for Facebook, tips for YouTube, and those are available to you. So tomorrow when that deck becomes available, you might want to print out those last few slides or save them to your computer. So as you start to become more active as content creators, you have some of those recommendations to help you. Okay, Brian, do you want to take one more question?
Our last question, what percentage of business do you think comes by way of social media? And I think this one's a little bit more challenging to answer because it's not the typical measure how many direct clients you're getting from an ad. Because like Drew said before, social media is providing the social proof. So it's not only driving the business to your website, but it's also increasing your conversion rate because of that social proof. So how could you kind of know what percentage of your business is being driven by social media? Bill, do you have any insights on this?
Yes, I can tell you exactly. I get about 1/3 of my clients through social media. I get about 1/3 of my clients through direct referrals from other clients. And I get about 1/3 of my clients through people who have physically seen my work. They're driving down the street and they see it and they talk with someone and say, oh, you know, Bill Martin did that, WJM Architect did that. So it's about 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. And it's a substantial amount. So there is a real incentive for all of us who are operating firms or supporting the operation of firms to engage in social media. It is powerful for bringing in, educating clients and bringing in quality clients to your practices.
That's fantastic. Stacy, do you have any comments about that?
I think that the opportunities that are available there for you to create those links and connections, you do want to be having a common thread between everything that is your voice. So I think that develops those relationships between the platforms for you.
That's fantastic. And with that, I want to thank everybody that attended and stayed with us for the whole presentation. I think we had a great time and shared a lot of valuable information. So I would like to see everybody that attended to get out on their chosen platforms to like to share, to comment, and to produce some content. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you to our esteemed panel. You guys were great. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you. Good job.
Thanks.